guys ready to start the show?
As a comedy writer, there's a few things that I know just as punchlines. One of these things is the McRib. I've never eaten one. I've never talked to anyone who's eaten one, but I know damn well that I can reference it if I need to make a diarrhea joke. Like, it's just there. And another one of these things is Burning Man. Up until recently, I just knew that I could make fun of Burning Man if I needed to reference a white person who had dreadlocks or someone who's riding a unicycle in a bike lane. Like, I basically just didn't know... I didn't know anything about it other than it was this kind of desert anarchy festival where you went to have steampunk-themed group sex. Like, that's all I knew about it. But earlier last year, I went through a breakup. Fun fact, in the first draft of that, I said, cut to last year. If you ever see me say that in a show, you can just kick me in the neck, like full permission. So earlier last year, I went through a breakup, and I was just in that moment where you're like, well, gotta change something. I better learn. Like, I better get something out of this. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? Do I take up hot yoga? Do I, take bird calls? Do I start calling people partner? Like, what do I do in this situation? And it was around that time I got just this random Facebook message from someone who listens to my podcast saying, I've got an extra Burning Man ticket. You can have it. So, this seemed like a good lesson in saying yes to life. It seemed like a good way to change myself that didn't involve exercise or not drinking. I was not about to do either of those. So I got on a plane to Reno. I rented a car. I drove out to the desert, and when I got there, like, certainly this place has an element of, like, self-parody. Like, everybody is either dressed as, like, kind of one or all of these things, fairy, steampunk, circus asshole, or someone who recently, like, clawed their way out of a fuck dungeon. Like, they are one, two, three, or all four of those things in some sort of weird cocktail. And I still had my, like, comedy writer shields up at that point. I just had on, like, I just bought a bunch of, like, cheap shit from H&M, and I just told everybody I was cosplaying as a guy your boyfriend knows. Like if you, like, saw me at, like, a craft beer bar or something, you're like, oh, yeah, my boyfriend knows that guy. Well, let's not go over there. Like, I was just, like, that's what I looked like. But the place is just so full of, like, fun and niceness and love, like, it just, like, it's infectious. Like, you can't help but have that barrier up. Here's an example. Like, I was just kind of, you ride your bikes around, and everybody has these camps, and every camp has an activity, and I'm riding this bike, and this guy flags me down, and he looks like a shirtless Judah Freelander from 30 Rock, and he has taint wash written on his chest. Taint wash. So he flags me down, and he's got one of these, those pump action things that you use to, like, water a plant that's high up? He's got one of those. So he flags me down, I get off my bike, and he says, may I wash your face? I said, sure. Like, it's super dusty out, you're in the desert. He's like, yeah, sure. He sprays off my face, feels great. He's like, may I wash your arms? It's very respectful in this, like, fucking namaste kind of way. He's like, may I wash your arms? May I honor you by washing your arms? So I'm like, yeah, sure. So he, like, pumps this thing and sprays my arms. Feels great. And in the same tone, he's like, may I wash your taint? And I looked over at my friend, and she just kind of nods. I dropped my pants, spread them. This guy blasted my taint. And then he looks back at his camp and yells, 35! And they all go, woo! So I'm riding around later, and the next thing I come to, they have little neighborhoods, and they have like a gayborhood at Burning Man. And I went up to this like shack camp thing that had snow cones, and they have two lines for snow cones. They have regular and they have exhibitionist. The exhibitionist line, much shorter. So I stand in the exhibitionist line, I get up to the front, and it's being manned by these just fucking jacked, beautiful guys in like short shorts and like tool belts, and they're making snow cones. And I get to the front of the exhibitionist line, I'm like, oh, well, what do you have to do to be in the exhibitionist line? He's like, well, you've got to show me your dick. So I like dropped my pants, and he's like, well, there it is. I didn't, not like a high five, not a you go girl. He didn't even remark upon my clean taint. But I got this snow cone, and I feel like that was just kind of that was the start of like opening up. And then after that I danced, and I painted my body, and I dropped acid. Maybe I dropped acid and then did those other two things, but the order's not important. So I mean, all it took was 2 public displays of my dick to really open up, and I guess, you know, that's kind of what I learned from all of this, is that like I tend to kind of sit on the lip of something and comment about it, and I don't join in. So I think the lesson here is that to open up to the experience, and it'll kind of sort of change your life. And I think now the next step is to finally try the McRib and kind of sort of get diarrhea. Thanks.